What do you think the outcome of Game 3 is going to be?
I'm actually going to go with the Clippers on this one. I think with this series going back to LA for game three, I think they're going to learn from their mistakes that they made in game two. The biggest mistake to me when I look at the Clippers that they unfortunately had to deal with in game two was they allowed the Suns to just get back into this huge rhythm late in the first half. Because really, I would say for about a quarter and a half in the first half, it seemed like the Clippers were just maintaining pace and keeping the Suns at a distant deficit, somewhere around, 5 to 7, 8 points. And then the Suns really went on this huge stretch at the end of the first half. And it was capped off by Devin Booker hitting a huge 3 point shot that ended up tying the game, I believe at 59 apiece. And then pretty much once the third quarter started, the Suns just kept their foot on the pedal. And that was despite the fact that DeAndre Ayton got into foul trouble. Ayton had 5 fouls in the third quarter, and he sat a long time before he eventually came back into the game. And don't get me wrong, Kawhi was hitting the shots. You had Russell Westbrook hitting shots, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough. And it didn't seem like when the Clippers needed to hit their shots, they just couldn't knock them down. You compare that to game one. Game one, I thought they were far more efficient. And when they got their open 3 point shots, they were able to knock them down. Just wasn't able to do it. They weren't able to do it in game two. I think going into game three, now that they're back home, I think they will be able to hit those open 3 point opportunities that they fell short in game two. I think at this point, it goes without saying that Kawhi's going to probably get somewhere around 30 to 35 points. Even though the Clippers lost game two, I thought he was still extremely effective. Dropped over 30 points. Just there are times where when he gets the rock and he gets just a little bit of separation or a little bit of space against his defender, he could just rise up and knock down his shots. It doesn't even matter if he gets a spot. He's extremely effective at the mid-range game, and he could hit those 3 point shots as well. I think another factor that we have to look at with the Clippers here is Russell Westbrook. Obviously, Westbrook had a huge game two, and I think that's going to continue going into game three. He almost had 30 points by himself in that game too. He had 28. He was only 2 points away from 30. And I think the one thing with him is that if he's given those opportunities to be able to get those one-on-one matchups and just speed by whoever's defending him, I think he's going to be able to do it well. Did it well in game two. Now that the series is back in LA, I think he'll be able to take advantage of those one-on-one matchups and probably get somewhere around 20, potentially 25 points once again. I think that he's shown me that he's taken advantage of the situation with the Clippers and he's made the most of it. And I think that he could do wonders for the Clippers going into game three. And I think really what it comes down to it is defensively, they're going to have to step up because when we look back at game two, the Suns took advantage of that Clippers defense. And it seemed like in game two, Kevin Durant was able to get to his spots more effectively. Devin Booker was able to get to his spots more effectively. Even Chris Paul was able to get to his spots more effectively. The shots that the Suns missed in game one, they made in game two. That's going to require a defensive switch up in game three from the Clippers if they're going to want to win this game. So I do expect this game to be competitive. This is going to be a fun one. I think this whole series is going to be a fun one. There's no doubt in my mind this series is going at least 6 games, potentially 7. But I think in this occasion, I think that LA is going to be able to get this game three, get up 2-1 in the series. And I think it's really going to be off the backs of Kawhi Leonard. I think Russ is going to have a good game. And when it comes to their role players, I think you have to look at Nicholas Batum, Eric Gordon, and Norman Powell. I think those three in particular, those guys are going to step up. I wouldn't be surprised if you combine all three of those guys and the points that they're going to accrue. I think it's probably going to be somewhere around 40 to 45 points. I think if they split about 15 to 20 each, 20 would be a little bit high, but if they can average somewhere in between about 15 to 20 points in this game, alongside with what Kawhi and Russ are going to do, I think it will be enough to give the Clippers a close win against the Suns.
I'm actually going the opposite way. I think that the key factor here is DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton got into an incredible rhythm at some point. I don't remember if it was before halftime in the second quarter or as the third quarter began, but he had hit 2 or 3 consecutive shots at the free throw line. back to back to back. He was getting boards. He was hustling. He was getting on defense. He was just really getting after it. And his energy just seemed to be completely different than in game one. Zubac, obviously, we already know last game had over 14 points. He had a double-double. And now in this game, you're looking at Zubac, and he was only able to get 6 boards and 8 points. So Ayton did what he needed to do. But, I mean, Nicholas Batum, he's got to be more involved in the offense as well. I know, again, he's not known to necessarily go out there and give you 15, 20 points anymore like in his Portland days. He had 0 points. Eric Gordon was 4-12 from the field. He was ineffective. And obviously Russell Westbrook stepped up in a massive way, going for 28 with 5 on 5. But that's not somebody that you need to go crazy, because if he's off or if he's not efficient like he was in game one, there are plenty of other instances to where he can contribute, whether that's rebounding the basketball or passing. So I would expect the Clippers team to bounce back from an overall standpoint, especially from Terrence Mann as well. He only had 10. He only took 3 shots, but it was very efficient in the way that he did. The Clippers need to find a way to get points from their supporting cast outside of Kawhi Leonard and Russell Westbrook. So when you talk about Phoenix now, like I started with DeAndre Ayton, he's got to continue to get fed that way. The man can hit 15, 17-foot shots in the occasional corner 3 as well, if given the time and the opportunity. So if he can get you 15, 20 points, 10 boards, 12 boards, a block or 2, you get him incorporated in this offense at a consistent enough clip. I think that on top of what Devin and KD are going to provide you, and if Chris Paul is able to contribute, that is a successful formula. We already know that the Phoenix Suns do not have depth on the bench, especially without Cameron Payne, who is questionable in game 3, who missed the first 2. You're going to need some assistance. And if your big can give you that solidified third, fourth option when Chris Paul's having an off night, that takes a lot of pressure off of KD and Devin Booker, because when you run that pick and roll, you cannot collapse on Devin Booker. You cannot collapse on Kevin Durant, because when you double him, that you got somebody rolling to the basket, and you don't necessarily need to have DeAndre Ayton getting a layup, getting an alley-oop, or somebody that is inefficient at shooting the basketball, because he can spread the floor and actually shoot and hit that mid-range jump shot. So for me, I think going to LA, understanding the formula that is going to, at least what worked in game 2, I think KD is going to go for one of those big games where he just absolutely annihilates a defense. KD has gone for 27 and now 25. I'm waiting for that 30-point barrage that KD just looks completely unguardable and unstoppable, because there are instances, like Stan Van Gundy said, where KD's not getting enough shots. He's not getting looked at in crunch time. And I understand that this is Devin Booker's team to an extent, but when you go out and you trade for a Kevin Durant caliber type of player, when you go and you get one of the best generational talents that we've ever seen in the NBA, one of the best scorers, if not the best scorer, depending on who you ask in NBA history, just because, again, size, handle, jump shot, his ability to get to the basket, finishing at the free throw line, he is probably the best overall scorer the NBA has ever seen in terms of fluidity. You have to give him the ball in those situations. It doesn't matter whose team it is. You go and you trade your whole team and its future for one person, he's got to get incorporated a lot faster. They did a better job of it in game 2, but again, with a similar output of 25 and 27, you need KD in close games to go out there and separate himself from the competition. He was guarded by Kawhi Leonard in a lot of situations. I think Monty Williams put him in a successful situation in itself. When you go and you set those pick and rolls to get a switch, KD's got to get involved more if you want to win on the road. Again, Devin Booker had an incredible game, but to really, really solidify yourself, put a statement on this, and take away home court just like the Clippers did from you, KD's got to go for 30, 35, and obviously the rest of the supporting cast needs to as well. But I'm really looking at DeAndre Ayton to remain confident. Monty's going to get him involved, and if he can, again, average anywhere from 15 to 20 points, I think this series is going to shift into the Phoenix Suns' favor.